Welcome back to Community Real Estate Talk Show. Tyler Freed here. Really excited. We've got Lucas back on the line, and we're going to do a little Cougar football talk. So I'm going to page him through right now. Lucas, how you doing, man?
Tyler, happy Thursday, my man.
Hey, happy Thursday to you. How's everything been? I know you've been a busy man lately.
Not too shabby. Just been a busy work week. Glad I was able to carve a little time out from work to let my brain reset and talk Cougars.
Oh, I love talking Cougar football with you. We were just going to kind of talk about, last time we talked was a couple months ago, and there's a lot of excitement and stuff going on. What have we learned since?
The team, this was definitely the first year I wasn't glued to every practice report like I've been in the past. Work's just been so busy that it's kind of precluded me from that. But I feel like I've got, just in the recaps that I've gotten over the course of the last couple of weeks and watching part of the spring game on Saturday, it seems like this team is definitely improving. A lot of things I really like, especially the what looks like maybe some maturity in Connor Halliday. I don't know if you got a chance to watch the spring game on Saturday, but he seemed to kind of have that sixth sense that he's lacked the last few years where when the pocket starts to collapse and pressure's coming, he kind of knows when to step up or climb the ladder, as they say, in the pocket and find the guy downfield, as opposed to just sitting in there and getting a lacerated liver or a blown labrum or whatever it is that our quarterbacks acute compartment syndrome have suffered from the last couple of years. So that was nice to see. And finally, depth. Seems like there's a lot of depth everywhere you go. So yeah, really looking forward to this season and glad you had me on.
Lucas, looks like Connor looked pretty healthy when he was posing in that photo with Snoop Dogg. Did you get a chance to check that out?
I did. I was kind of bummed. I was in Pullman just 2 weeks ago, and I was sandwiched right between Jerry Garcia for Mom's Weekend and Snoop Dogg for Springfest, two of my favorite entertainers. And I thought that was great that the guys got a chance to get back to campus. And I know two of the kids on the team right now, Daquan Brown and Jeremiah Allison, both played in that Snoop Youth Football League growing up. So it was cool to see the players get a chance to hang out with someone like Snoop. And I didn't realize it until this weekend, but he actually has a son that's going to be a senior in high school this coming year, and he's one of the top-rated wide receivers in the country with an offer from WSU, Cordell Brodus, and he's playing at Bishop Gorman High School out in Las Vegas, and has offers from all over the country: Notre Dame, Tennessee, LSU, Wazoo, Oregon State, Washington. So should be a fun one to watch.
It sounds like the Cougs are getting some pretty good recruits in terms of the wide receivers. And I know we're going to talk a little bit about one of the seniors that's playing, but let's talk about the off-season recruits. I mean, any of them stand out in your mind?
Yeah, so that's a good question, and one of the things that I kind of always ponder over is a little bit different than the NFL, right? And that most times, especially at a Washington State, guys rarely step in and have the chance to be that impact guy right away. A lot of the guys that we signed this year, back in February, will be guys that are making impacts for the Cougs, 2016, 2017, 2018. But there's a lot of players to be excited for in this last class. A few that have stood out to me. We got a kid named Deion Singleton from Pasco, who had been playing his prep football in the South and had offers from a litany of SEC schools, but he had moved out to the Tri-Cities to live with an older brother who was playing in the Tri-Cities, whatever the Arena Football League is there. And I think a few teams cooled on him when it looked like he might be an academic risk, but WSU offered him, and we landed him on signing day. That'll be a fun one to watch. Also nabbed a kid named Jalen Canty, I believe from Oakland or somewhere over in the East Bay. Maybe, no, not Sacramento. It's definitely the East Bay. 6'8" defensive end prospect. Has only played 1 or 2 years of organized football, and actually is likely going to be playing basketball at WSU as well. At least that's what Bone had told him before he got. But luckily, before Bone got fired. So we'll find out if he's going to hit the hardwood for us as a forward. But it sounds like he's a little raw right now, but could be a fantastic prospect for us in a couple of years. Another kid that'll be an interesting one to keep an eye out for is a freshman defensive tackle, I believe it's pronounced Ngalu, Ngalu Tapa, defensive tackle from Sacramento, and had a few off-field issues, or I should say one major one, that kind of hung over his head his senior year. And he had been in the car with his cousin or been recruited by his cousin to come hang out, and then his cousin committed a robbery at a convenience store. But it sounds like something that is fully behind him, and something that he really wasn't aware he was participating in. From everything I've read, it sounds like he just thought he was out hanging out with family, which is obviously huge in the Polynesian community. So hopefully an honest mistake and someone that can make an impact for us on the D-line in the coming years. Those are some of the guys that I really like in the class. Canty, Nalatapu, and Calvin Green is another one. Came to us from Sacramento as well. He's a wide receiver player, and he had a fantastic spring game. He actually led all of our wide receivers in yards that day. So Calvin Green should be a fun one to watch too. He was the only early enrollee of the five I just mentioned.
Lucas, any instant starters out of that, or do you think it's going to go with following the program of just a couple years in the system and then making a step on the field?
Yeah, I mean, I just don't see it. The one guy on that list and the one guy that really it wasn't an early enrollee that made an impact was Green, but there's so many friggin' wide receivers in front of him. I mean, it's just a logjam. I don't see it this year. I don't know if there's going to be any true freshmen that have an impact. Maybe top on the D-line, but even from some of the things I've read lately from the D-line coach Salavea, that we've got a pretty nice rotation of six guys along the D-line that could start at any point for us at any one of the three positions. So no, I really don't see that. We're not a USC, we're not a Bama where we can just plug and play 5-star recruits anywhere on the field. We're more of an Oregon State that traditionally when we're good, we've got a roster made up of fourth and fifth year players that have physically matured and proven that they were overlooked by some of the bigger boys.
Lucas, in terms of that, let's talk about the other schools. Who else is making some good offseason moves in the Pac-12?
It's an interesting comment. I actually a conversation I have probably every offseason with Brian Hall. I know you know him.
Yeah, B. Hall, good guy.
B. Hall played linebacker for the Cougs when we were in school, and he's always like, it's fantastic that we're getting better and that we've got Leach and this and that, and that we're getting new facilities. But we're always, you got to remember, we're not Oregon. Oregon can always make moves. USC can always make moves. There wasn't a whole lot of shakeup this off season in terms of coaching. So Sark down to USC and Peterson in at UW. Those are two great hires, obviously. But facilities are going up at just an insane rate. I think I heard earlier, might have been at Night with Cougar Football back in March when I bumped into you, or maybe it was even like on a coach's show or something that I read. Moose said there's something like $1 billion worth of facilities being built around the Pac-12 as we speak, where shovels are in the ground.
I love it.
Not just in conception, but yeah, really starting to see some of that Pac-12 TV money, if you will, come to fruition. But other than that, personally, I followed the Cougar recruiting for 10, 12 years now, probably since I was a sophomore at WSU. But I don't really follow the recruiting for all the other schools. If I see a guy we lose out on, I might remember his name for a little bit. But my obsession stops kind of with the Cougs. So outside of coaching and facilities, I'm not too sure of what these teams have going on as far as personnel goes. I know the one thing that has stuck out of my mind that I did see was Utah, who I believe lost their quarterback to a career-ending head injury, landed a transfer at the position from Oklahoma, who I believe had graduated already and has a year of eligibility left. So I want to say his name is like Kendall Tompkins, something like that. Kind of how would you describe him? He's definitely a scrambler, but he is lanky. That's the word I'm going for.
Not a lot of lanky scramblers out there, is there?
No, but he looks the part. That's for sure. I remember watching him at Oklahoma a little bit and was quite surprised that a kid with legs that long could move like that. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there because they were a pretty run through program by the end of last year. I'm pretty happy that we get them early on in the year. In September, I believe, we go down to Salt Lake City. So better that than later in the year when they're clicking and there's 4 feet of snow on the ground.
Let's jump into that. I mean, what do you think about our schedule this year? I mean, do we have a chance to beat Arizona State late in the season at Arizona State, or Stanford at Stanford?
Yeah, so I love the way Bill's setting up our out-of-conference schedules. Every couple of years he'll get us a nice opponent, that's a big paycheck and, a fun road trip like an Auburn or a Wisconsin. But really, I mean, you look around college football and, the amount of those marquee out-of-conference matchups, you just don't see them like you used to. Our schedule for the next 5 years is loaded with teams from the Mountain West. We should go 3-0 against. We should probably be starting 3-0 for like the next 6 years. I saw that schedule was released on Coug Fan. It's a lot of the San Jose states, the Wyomings, the Utah states. I think Boise's in there once. Rutgers a couple times, Portland State, Eastern. If you can get to 3-0 by playing a bunch of nobodies, you're halfway to bowl eligibility. And then you've only got to sneak, 3 or 4 more or 5 or 6 more on a good year. But this year, I really don't see us going down to Stanford and beating them. Our second longest drought to a Pac-12 foe other than Oregon right now. We've lost 6 straight to Stanford, though we tend to play them pretty well down on the farm. ASU, on the other hand, it's later in the year. It'll be nice and warm in Tempe. It might make for a good guys trip down to get some early winter golf in.
Now you're talking.
In the Arizona sun. And Arizona State loses a lot of talent on the defensive side of the ball. I know a lot of people are sold on Todd Graham being, the next big thing, but he just seems like too much of a flight risk up to this point in his career, looking out for his next job to be as genuine as it seems the ASU family has taken him for.
Let's go back. You mentioned, the possibility going 3-0 for the next upcoming seasons. Let's chat about that. I mean, if we go 3-0 this year and we've got Oregon in Pullman, is there a chance to have game day in Pullman?
That would be cool, wouldn't it? I mean, it seems like at some point, they've just got to do it because, ESPN clearly knows about it. They put us in their promo commercials, and they gave us a police escort in the Husky Stadium this year for game day. At some point, you got to think it happens. Rutgers in Seattle, they're breaking in a new offensive coordinator and a new defensive coordinator and a quarterback. You've got to think that's a W. At Nevada, they've struggled quite a bit post Chris Ault, and then Portland State hasn't been. Outside of I think they knocked off. It wasn't Cal last year. Might have been Colorado or somebody they knocked off in the last couple of years, but still, Portland State's Portland State. In 2015, we've got Portland State at Rutgers and Wyoming at home. After that, Eastern at Boise, Idaho at home. So it's just a lot of nice soft landing spots that should get us to 3-0 for the next 5 or 6 years. And I would think Oregon, if we're 3-0 and Oregon's 3-0 come September 20th, I'd think game day would give us a shot. But the one thing you've always got to do, and I haven't looked at it yet, is what are the other games around the country that day? Yeah. They're always going to take a Florida State Clemson game with 2 teams in the top 10 over a top 5 Oregon team and a Washington State team outside the top 25. So great question. I haven't looked that far ahead. It would be a lot of fun to get game day in Pullman, though. That's for sure. I can imagine it would be a raucous environment.
Yeah, hopefully it's in the near future. Let's go to. There's been also a lot of talk about Vince Mayle, and just had a really good season last year, and just really high expectations for him this year. What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, so coming out of junior college, the kid had offers from all over the country. I believe Ohio State and West Virginia were both in on him. And last year he showed up to camp, and I remember hearing he's fat and he's dropping balls. But when you see him up close and personal, and he's a big kid. I always hate to make comparisons to NFL players based off of body type or whatever. Comparing every wide receiver to an Amendola or to a Welker. Yeah. I think it's kind of lazy. But he's a big guy that kind of reminds me of a certain Detroit Lions wide receiver in size and strength. And If he's not going for 1,000 yards and putting up a dozen touchdowns this year, something's wrong. Before I fell asleep on Saturday, I caught the first quarter of the WSU spring game. It was a early round of golf on Saturday morning, and I had to take a mid-afternoon snooze. But it was clear that Mayle is Halliday's number one receiving option. He looks trimmer, and he looks faster, and he looks like he knows what he's doing. The first couple of games last year, he was only averaging like 14 yards a game, and towards the end of the season was closer to 80 or 90 yards per game. And it just seems like he's going to be too much for a lot of guys in the league to handle. I cannot wait to watch him.
That's exciting. We just got time for one more question. So how can people follow you? Because I know you post a ton of stuff, and you've got a lot of involvement with the Cougar Alumni Association. What's a good way to reach you? Is it your Twitter? Is it your Facebook? What's the best way to do that?
So back in the day, I used to blog at WSUFootballblog.com, and that was my handle. I was at Wazoo FB Blog. But I have kind of ventured out on my own, and not that I'm bringing new or original content, but it's usually, I'm kind of on top of what's going on, and make snide comments, and I like to think of myself as kind of the Bill Simmons for WSU.
Yeah.
Damn, there I go with a terrible analogy. Anyways, people can definitely follow me at Lucas Coug on the Twitter, and would love to engage with them. Always down for a good Cougar conversation, and always appreciate coming on here and talking Cougs with you, Tyler.
Oh, we'll have you on again soon. I really appreciate it, man. Have a great rest of the week.
Yeah, you do the same. Cheers. Go Cougs.
All right, go Cougs. Later, Lucas. All right, we're going to take a quick break. You're listening to Community Real Estate Talk Show. I'm your host, Tyler Freed. We'll be right back.